The blood eagle. In the Middle Ages, Norsemen and Scandinavian Vikings raided monasteries and coastal cities, inspiring fear for their bold exploits. As the most vicious raiding warriors, Vikings traveled worldwide seeking booty, killing, and taking victims as slaves. But while their reputation abroad was fierce, Vikings were a civilized community with set rules for punishing wrongdoers back home. The blood eagle is one of the most famous Norse execution traditions that is still just as shocking to date. A son carried out the blood eagle against a person who murdered their father. In the blood eagle, the executioner opened the offender's back. The ribs were separated from the backbone and twisted upwards to resemble wings. Then, the executioner pulled out the lungs and draped them over the wings, after which the executioner added salt to the wound for maximum pain. The pain inflicted by the ritual punishment was unimaginable, and offenders eventually succumbed to their injuries. Lingchi. Chinese history is full of tales of mighty empires, exploits, and triumphs that made the nation great. However, there is one brutal practice from the ancient Chinese that is frightening to fathom. The punishment was called Lingchi or slow slicing. It was reserved for major crimes like treason and mass murder. As the name suggests, Lingchi, also known as death by 1,000 cuts, was a brutal punishment where the executioner took their time killing a lawbreaker. After being tied to a post, the condemned was cut into portions. Then, bit by bit, the executioner removed segments to reveal underlying tissue. Since Chinese law never specified a particular approach for conducting the punishment, it varied from one region to another. In some places, the accused suffered over 3,000 cuts, while in others, the process took a few cuts in time. Either way, time varied depending on the officials and how much pity they felt for the accused. Trees. A bit of a warning to any sensitive readers on this one as, despite what the innocent title may suggest, this method of punishment was particularly gruesome. Thievery is a crime many look down upon, certainly, but not one most would consider requiring one of the most gruesome and strangely creative forms of execution in history. Devised and heavily used in the ancient Persian Empire, offending thieves were to be killed using 2 trees. The trees were bent back unnaturally and secured in their position with ropes. Then the unfortunate criminal was tied to them. His left limbs to one side and right limbs to the other. The ropes holding the trees in place were then cut, and the thief, who now surely heavily regretted his actions, was torn apart by force as the trees returned to their upright position. If nothing else, at least it was supposedly pretty quick. Metal bull. Quite possibly the most gruesome entry on this list and considered by some to be the most horrible punishment and method of torture in history, what's known as a brazen bull is an ancient Greek invention. The victim would be placed inside an ornately crafted bronze sculpture of a bull with hollow insides, which would be heated up, cooking the person held in the bull's stomach. To make it somehow even more terrifying, apparently, the bull had very specifically designed acoustics that would make the poor criminal's screams of agony sound very much like the sound of a real bull, according to historical reports. Reportedly, the creator of the device eventually fell victim to the method as well, which was typically reserved for the worst of crimes and meant to be used partially to deter people from committing them in the first place. Tattoos. Japan is frequently present on lists regarding unique cultural practices, and as such, it was bound to have a spot here as well. The reason, thankfully, is one of the least gruesome ones we're discussing today. Getting a tattoo seems like a personal, aesthetical choice today. In the Edo period of Japan, however, it was a way to mark criminals to ensure that even if they were taken back in society, people roughly knew who they were dealing with, denying them an opportunity for employment, good standing in society, or starting anew with a clean slate. The severity and type of crime would result in different tattoos. Murderers would receive very noticeable markings on their heads, while thieves may walk away with a simple arm tattoo. This punishment and more recent connections to Yakuza are also the most likely reasons tattoos are stigmatized in Japan to this day. Boiling. Boiling is a process associated with cooking or even industrial processes, but in the 1500s, executioners used it for punishment. In this execution method, prisoners were placed in large containers filled with boiling water, oil, wax, and even wine. They were left there until they died. Death by boiling drew out the victim's suffering for as long as possible. The Roman Emperor Nero was a boiling champion. Under his reign, many early Christians, then considered rebellious, were boiled in oil. In England, during Henry VIII's rule, boiling was a punishment for those guilty of treason or killing their husbands or masters with poison. Since death by boiling was fascinating, it was done in public where a huge metal container was set on a massive fire as citizens watched a human be boiled alive. The process for one person could take as long as 2 hours. Rats. Fans of medieval films and shows like Game of Thrones know the torture by rats punishment method all too well. Governments use this punishment to coerce confessions or teach the victim a lesson. A victim is tied down, and a bucket is put upon their bare stomach or chest. Then, a hungry or even diseased rat is thrown inside the bucket. The executioner heats up the bucket with the rat inside. As the rat realizes it's trapped, it starts nibbling the victim's flesh to escape. Often, the frenzied rat eats its way into the flesh while looking for a way out, and in the process, it causes unimaginable pain and stress. While surviving the punishment was possible, it left the sufferer with wounds that took a lot of time to heal. While rats are innocent rodents, creative executioners found ways to make them lethal weapons. Poena Cullei. Families are the most important social units, and in Roman society, parricides or the killing of parents or near relatives attracted severe punishments. The standard punishment for parricide among Romans was called Poena Cullei, which translates to sewn in a bag. Executioners first beat the condemned with rods until they were weak and bleeding. Then, the individuals were sewn in a leather sack with a rooster, snake, monkey, and dog. This unique combination guaranteed that there would be chaos within the leather sack. As if that wasn't enough, executioners then threw the enclosed sack into the sea. If the accused didn't die from being attacked by the animals, drowning in the sea completed the job. In cruelty and severity, this is one ugly punishment. Scaphism. As seen in our not-so-pleasant list, ancient peoples had lots of creative methods to kill people guilty or accused without evidence of murdering royalty. But no other punishment method surpasses scaphism, also known as the boats. You could call it bittersweet, you'll get the joke in a minute. Scaphism involved the trapping of an individual between two small boats or tree trunks. The executioner would bind them to ensure they couldn't free themselves. For scaphism to work properly, executioners chose to put the victims in swamps. Still, water is home to many bugs and small animals, perfect for torture. The next step of the punishment was a little strange. The victim was force-fed with milk and honey. This is where the bittersweet joke comes in, a mixture that was intended to cause diarrhea. Executioners applied the remaining mixture to the accused's exposed skin to attract wild animals, insects, and rats. Most times, the accused died from being eaten alive, exposure, dehydration, and their wounds. Drawn and quartered. As cruel punishments go, drawing and quartering are the most unusual techniques ever, ones that struck fear into spectators. In this punishment, the executioner ties the victim to a horse. The horse drags them to the gallows, where the execution will happen. At the gallows, they are then hung, beheaded, or disemboweled. The quartering involved splitting the accused in fours by tying the body to strong horses. The stallions are forced to run in opposite directions, tearing the body into pieces in a most dramatic fashion. The spectacle associated with this punishment was to provide ultimate humiliation to the wrongdoer and great entertainment to onlookers. The punishment was popular since it was rare and used sparingly, reserved for those guilty of treason. That's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.